We were talking a little bit about it earlier, and Sean asked when we're going to need to put Abby on payroll. Anyways, that's just little introductions. Today we're here and excited to talk about an alternative turf project study, and it's an opportunity for us to partner with the University of Wyoming to not only do some alternative turf trials at our local parks and green belts, but also in Laramie, I believe, is going to be doing the same thing. And I think probably Abby or Tyrell will talk about what the outcome could be at the end. I don't know if you guys want to go over a basic idea of this project before we jump into this PowerPoint, or if you want to start off with the slides and kind of talk about it as we go.
Okay, yeah. So I think I was sort of interested in looking at some alternative ideas because of the water issues that are happening and seeing some of the information out on social media and it not always being great information or information that's appropriate for where we live in Wyoming. But there isn't a lot of research to fall back and say, that's not really a good idea for this place. It's been done, you know, like maybe in eastern Nebraska, but that doesn't mean it's going to work here, but we don't necessarily have the research to back it up and say, here's this study that we did. And so I was talking to a turf specialist that we have on campus, and he did some of this work in his graduate studies, I want to say in Illinois and maybe another state on the West Coast, but again, hasn't really been done yet in Wyoming. And so as a turf specialist, he was really excited. And then just because of the things that are happening here in Rawlins, we were really excited. And I think that that's kind of where some of the first conversations came about, of being able to gather some quality information to get back to people.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that will benefit not only our residents with the water situation we're going through, but also our park system. We want to do right by this water situation. Our Parks Department is following the same rules as the rest of the community is being asked to do. And so if we can find alternative ways to keep our parks looking beautiful that require maybe little or no water, we're welcome to look at that, even going into the future, no matter what our water situation is, because we know it's going to improve. We're going to get back to watering, and we're going to have a green city, but we always want to do our part to try to minimize, I think, the watering that we need in our parks. So that said, should we jump into the first PowerPoint we're going to look through? We'll have some photos of some park locations that we're looking at doing this study. And some will have existing turf, and some will have basically a blank slate, starting fresh with new compost ready to go, just as if we were going to put sod down or seed down for turf. So the first one is actually Rodbury Park. And if you look in this photo, that's the entrance sign on the corner of the street right there on the southeast corner of the park. And then that little hill behind there is this next slide. And this is one of the areas with existing turf that we're looking at overseeding, basically. And I don't know if you guys want to jump into this. I brought powerful backup with me to help with this presentation.
So this island is kind of unique as far as, I guess I'm calling it an island because it has like sidewalk all the way around it, so it is kind of isolated from the rest of the park. And this one, we're going to try 3 of the species that we're looking at, and kind of be the ones that are the most vigorous as far as growing, so that they have the best chance of kind of doing well in this turf. And that is the western yarrow, clover, the white clover, and then some micro clover. And those seem to be the ones that like people are also the most interested in introducing them to their yards. So those 3. And I think Jason said we'll look at what the plans are in a minute if you're not familiar with what those are.
So here's an island at Washington Park that's up north, kind of sort of adjacent to the playground area. There's a little parking area there, and this, I guess the idea for this is, or the plans for this has changed a little bit over time. Originally, we had a great fall last year, so Tyrell and his crew were able to get a lot of things accomplished. And the plan for this was let me back up. Before, what it looks like now, it was nasty rocks,
It's all that river
poor
rock.
soil, river rock, weeds growing in between, a nightmare to maintain. And Tyrell would tell you as well, any type of park improvements or landscaping or anything we do, the first question we ask ourselves, what's the maintenance gonna be on this going forward, so we limit the amount of time his crew needs to do the maintenance, to take care of it. So the idea was this, is they took out all the rock, they took out all the bad soil, they put in good compost, and the thought was either sod or seed it and have a nice grass area, so Parks crew drives up, pulls a mower out of the back of the truck, mows it, gone, move on to the next project, instead of before where, string trimmers and pulling weeds and all this stuff. But that was done before we really understood what the water situation was, so then we kind of let it sit, and we were like, well, let's wait and see what we're gonna do. And then this project came up, and Tyrell was like, here's a great opportunity to use what we mentioned as far as starting fresh, good compost, put some sort of alternative turf to show residents another possibility. So I'll send it over to you guys.
And the one that'll go here, it's called, from the seed company, it's called a low grow mix. And it's basically a mix that the seed company has put together as an alternative turf. And they've used it down in Greeley some, and it's one of those, it's been explained to me that from a distance you would look at it and have no idea that this is not traditional looking turf. So it would still give very much that turf sort of appeal to people, but when you get up and look down close at it, it's all sort of still grasses, but just alternative grasses. It's not Kentucky bluegrass. I actually don't know I think it has 4 species in it, and I'm not sure what they are off the top of my head, but we'll have it in that PowerPoint in a minute. But it'll be a mix of grasses.
And I don't know if we mentioned it before, but all of these projects, when we put the seed down, we're still following the same guidelines that we're doing now for the water restrictions. We're not gonna be watering 4 days a week or anything like that. So I just wanted to point that out. The next slide is the southern section of Washington Park that we obtained from, I wanna say the county?
The hospital, yeah.
The hospital, yeah, a few years back, so, let's see what the next slide is. So, yeah, and, I don't know if you guys wanna kind of explain, this is another existing turf that we would kind of oversee.
So with this southern section of Washington Park, what we're gonna do is set up, how many plots are this? 8 or 9? 9 different 20 by 20 plots. And actually, on the east side of that park, running down, there's box elders planted, just about a perfect distance apart. And so we're gonna run these plots down in between those trees. And it works out pretty well to where, so we're right in between, and we can do 9 plots. And what we wanna do is come in with an aerator and follow with seeding, and then follow with top dressing of compost. Kind of what would be recommended to someone that was overseeding their yard. And kind of the benefit of this is it gives residents kind of some different options, realistic options. Like doing a slower transition to a alternative turf might be more realistic for a lot of folks. And then we're also going to do the ones where we're starting with a blank slate, like the island at Washington Park, where some people want to take that kind of work on and remove all their turf and start fresh with just seed. And so that's what we're doing with this one. With the 9 different plots, we're going to test each alternative turf species individually within those different 20 by 20 plots. And we'll kind of do a in-the-field comparison.
I think this is a good opportunity. So 9 different 20 by 20 plots, some of them will likely fail, and that's okay. Because we'll know, what, this didn't work, but this worked. And so here's going to be a great way for residents and families to come walk around the park, and we'll have it labeled with what's there, and they can see as it's growing which ones are working, which ones are not. So I just wanted to point out that not every one of these is probably going to take. And when we look at our West End green belts, that's nasty weather over there with the wind and everything. So who knows what's going to happen? But that's why we're doing this, really to help us understand and help residents understand what opportunities are there, what works and what doesn't. Because you do hear a lot of on Facebook and just talking to people, everybody knows something and everybody knows everything. And or some people know everything. And just because one person says this is the way to go, maybe it's not. So that's why we want to give all these different options for residents to
Is it
choose.
soft like grass? Like, are they soft like grass?
They're different, and we'll show some photos a little later, but
Yeah, they are. So there's, one of them is like clover. I'd say that a lot of people probably have a lot of clover in their yards already, so very soft. There's another yarrow. After we started looking at these seeds, I've been seeing it in a lot of landscapes around, so it would also be soft. Some of them that we don't really know how they're going to handle are some of the more like mound grasses. And part of that is because they're mound grasses, but we're actually seeding them at a rate that's 3 to 5 times what would be recommended like out in a field. And so it's one of those, we're hoping that it acts like turf, but that's what we're trying to figure out, because these are alternatives, and so we don't really know how it's going to be. But as far as like soft on your feet and things like that, all of them, should be. It shouldn't be anything that goes
Isn't
here.
there a frisbee golf thing on that one?
yep.
Yep,
So
That'll stay, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
so the way that this is, so back behind Tyrell not behind Tyrell. Kitty corner kind of from where Tyrell is, there's a disc golf.
Yep.
And then straight up from him, there's another one. And the plots are kind of alternated around them so that they're not going to hopefully get all of the foot traffic, but they're still there and everything will still function.
Yeah, so-
And that's part of it too, is like, let's see how these handle with a little bit of foot traffic on them, if they're good options for lawns.
There's
or
a lot of
parks.
people that are into that.
Yeah.
That park was
definitely.
full the other day of
Yeah.
people playing.
Lots of people.
Does-
And the significance of the 20 by 20 plots is, our turf specialist Laramie, the test plots that he's running are 20 by 20. And so that's why we were kind of talking about that specific number, so that he can replicate it and it'll be the same size. So.
Now, this particular type of grass, does it take a little less water or more water, or about the same? or-
What's here right now is probably Kentucky bluegrass, which takes a lot of water, but what we want to seed into it, we're hoping will take less water, but that's part of we're not really sure how it'll handle, and part of the research part of it, the experiment.
And we are, it's June, the end of June, before we really get rolling on this. The seed's on order, some of it's already here. Ideally, probably April to put it in the ground. So we might, next April, we might again aerate, like Tyrell mentioned, and seed behind it. You'll actually, later on the agenda tonight, we're asking council to not amend the budget, but reallocate some capital funding for general fields improvements to purchase an aerator and box seeder, which would be ideal for this application, because it's all done at once. But so yeah, we might find that we continue next fall or spring and apply more seed and continue this project and see how it grows. But we're also hoping to see some results this fall as well. So
At my yard on the west side, it was there when I got there, and it was terrible, and we didn't do anything other than water it. Now that it's there, it can be so brown and crunchy when you walk across it, you'd swear to God it was dead. And then you water it a couple days and it comes back. It is the hardiest grass, and the grass in my backyard, not so much. It's totally different grass, but I wish I knew what it was. But it's the toughest grass I've ever seen. It can go get dry.
So here's part of one of our projects last summer and fall. Tyrell and his crew were anywhere in our parks that we had a park entrance sign. We really feel the importance of first impressions, and when you pull up to a park, what does it look like? Part of the strategic plan, the beautification process, and all that. So his crew, again, we had a great fall, a lot of decent weather to get some extra projects done. Was Tyrell and his crew cut out this area for landscaping. Because of the water situation, we didn't jump out there and put a bunch of plants and everything in there. We were holding off, and then again, this project came to light, and we're like, what a great, another location, fresh. This is all good compost, I believe, after they took it out, so it's ready to go. And so, you guys want to add that?
I don't know what we're putting in.
So the other ones are the West End green belts. And how many are we looking at?
We have 6 islands on the west end that we're looking at implementing this project, and what we'll be doing is the same thing with like the Tully Park sign and the Washington Park Island, is we'll be removing all the old turf and prepping it with compost and then seeding it with individual species. I don't know if we're doing any of the mixes.
No, because the mix is at Washington.
We're just doing straight seed on these islands. I know there's the 2 big ones below Cabby's. There's one in front of Memory Lanes, one in front of Lobella, one in front of Mike's, Big City, and then the other one in front of the Quality Inn. Those are the islands that we picked on the north side. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna also be a great test just for our environment. 'Cause I mean, our western greenbelt is probably our harshest environment that any of our landscaping has to deal with. And like we said, it might fail, it might not even, we might not even have anything, but that also tells us something. It's just kind of the bummer part of a research project is when it doesn't work, but it's still valuable information.
I'd like to point out that the West End green belts that we're looking at are also within the strategic plan, the beautification process on that side of town, as well as some impact assistance funding and some capital funding that council has approved in the past and going into next year for consideration of approval this evening. So the work that they're doing by taking out all that old dirt that's not really, very healthy, nothing will really grow very well, rock and all that kind of stuff, sand, lots of sand. We were gonna do that anyways. So this is just a great opportunity, because the idea was let's take it all out, because it will look fine. It'll look a lot better if we remove all the old stuff, and even if we put that rubber mulch down, it would look with no plants. It would still look better than what it looks like now. So here's an opportunity to go, hey, let's try this out in the meantime while we're in this water situation. It might give us some great information in the future on what we can do with these green belts going forward, because this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as green belts throughout town and that beautification process that's identified in the strategic plan that is very high up on our radar. And then a quick reminder, it's coming up also on the 6th penny where we have $450,000 that will be coming to council for consideration for city entryways and improvements. And so it just fits. The timing couldn't be any better. So let's see, this is, where's this one? I don't know,
That's right in front
That's
of,
the other
that's right next to
These
the
are
other
all on
one.
the same side.
They're all on
Yeah.
the north side.
And some of these, it looks like nothing's in them, but when we got out because we took measurements so that we know how much seed to order, there was yarrow growing in a couple of these already. So some of these, that we want to try out, they were there and present, so,
That might be a good sign.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me. Oops.
Gives me anxiety.
No judgment, please. It's fine.
So now we'll move on to some of the turf options that Abby and her colleagues and Tyrell came up with. Got to give them a lot of this, if not all the credit. So maybe one of my favorites here, but.
So I'd say the micro clover is one of more like the buzz around town as far as let's try this out as an alternative turf. It's one of those that I'm a little more like, I don't know if this is gonna overwinter and how it's gonna do with our wind and some of that stuff, but that's the point, that people are talking about it and are excited about it, and we don't have good solid information on how it's going to do here. And so let's try it, let's plant it, so that, I guess I'm also from a different standpoint of like, let's educate the people, which I know you guys are excited about, but it's just different kinds of motivation. And that's something I'm excited about here, is just to be able to have more information to give to citizens, but also to give state of Wyoming, because we just don't have this information for alternative turfs. This is the white Dutch clover. This is what's pretty common in a lot of lawns around town. We have it in our lawn. I've seen it in, you know, the park systems already. It's a nitrogen fixer, so it has the potential to also help make the lawn around it be healthy. And so I think it's definitely worth looking at considering.
We had that on our amusement park in Torrington.
Yeah.
It's really easy to take care of.
Right, yep. This is the yarrow, so typically, like if you see this out on the plains, because this is a native plant, it's something that's this big and it has a white flower on it. But when you mow it, then it looks more like this, and it's really short to the ground. It's really soft. And again, there's probably people around town that this is in their yard and they want to do everything in their power to get rid of it because it's not the look that they're going for. But again, we're looking at these alternatives and things that maybe can survive with less water and stay green, and so that's why it's kind of.
How do you get rid of it?
What's that?
How do you get rid of it?
Right, exactly. There's lots of people who want to get rid of it. I'd say probably the best option is an herbicide, and chat with weed and pest in my house.
My wife works on it. My backyard is full of it.
Yeah.
And she works on it, and the more she works on it, the more it grows.
Yeah.
Is it a broadleaf? Considered a broadleaf?
Yeah, I think so.
A broadleaf killer would kill a debari?
Yeah.
I
A
don't know.
dandelion killer?
Sometimes
I've tried
you-
it, it won't work.
Oh.
When
No.
you think about killing things, you have to think about what you're replacing them with, or the same issue can come back, or a different issue that you dislike even more. So-
Long roots.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Long roots.
Yeah, I mean, this is a native plant that's out on the plains. So
Yeah.
it's used to kind of dealing with our climate. Buffalo grass, this is one that's more typical with what little research we do have in this state about alternative turfs. Buffalo grass and the next slide, blue grama, are the ones that usually come up. They're a little bit more warm season living, so we don't really know how they're going to do here, but it's a very common suggestion, I guess, for alternative turfs. And this is the blue grama. It looks like it has little eyelashes and the seed heads on it. It's pretty low growing. And again, it's a little misleading because these pictures are of the plants seeded out and tall, and they're gonna be mowed, so they're gonna be lower to the ground, but it's just, we're trying to do something that isn't really done a lot, so. Crested wheatgrass, so this is one that I mentioned before as far as usually thought of as a mound type grass. This fairway, from I did some reading in some like turf books, and the fairway option, I guess, can be used on some golf courses, or they've looked at that as an alternative. So I thought if we're gonna try crested wheatgrass, we might as well try this specific variety. And again, to hopefully get away from that mounding action. I don't know if you all know what I mean when I talk about mound grasses, okay. So to hopefully get away from mounds of these, we're seeding it at a time of like 3 to 5 times the recommended rate, and see if we can get it to function as a turf grass that way. String bank wheatgrass, again, kind of the same as far as typical behavior as the crested wheat, and we're just gonna see if it can do something different.
Abby, how tall does that grow?
I'd say all of those probably get 18 to 24 inches if you weren't mowing them.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just guessing that, I don't,
Sure.
yeah.
Aren't they a little bit, they're not quite as soft to step on as the other grasses?
They're probably not as thin bladed as maybe what you're used to in a turf. That could be true. I think that they'd still probably be soft. It's just gonna have a different look for sure.
Are you gonna submit an official study?
Yes, yeah. So that's, this is the low grow mix that I said we're gonna try at Washington Park, and that the seed company has recommended a lot for alternative turfs, and they've seen it work pretty well around Greeley. So this is the first 2 grasses in that mix, the Canada bluegrass and then Sandburg bluegrass. And then these 2 fescue species. And again, I mean, just because it works in Greeley doesn't mean it's gonna work here. We're at different elevation and different growing season and all of that stuff, but we have to have some sort of information and start somewhere, so. But yeah, as far as the study, as far as doing an official something, there's definitely an opportunity for a publication to come from this. So probably not in any sort of super prestigious research, like scientific journal by any means, but definitely a bulletin on campus or like a barnyards and backyards article, that sort of thing. But I would say I can't guarantee anything, but there's a really good chance that this would absolutely be a publication and something to be able to show the rest of the state, like I said, and that people can use. And that's the beauty of having another site in Laramie, trying to replicate the same sort of thing and make it stronger, I guess. And then I know that our turf specialist has worked in the past with Torrington and the green spaces folks over there. So I think that there's an opportunity for other municipalities to maybe jump on board and do things in the future. I think Jason mentioned about coming back in next April and doing some more work. So we hope to be able to have some great results at the end of the season, but really we want to know how things overwinter, because that's a part of, your turf grass and if you want to keep it or not. And really it'd be nice to know, what does this look like in 3 years? What does this look like in 5 years? And so having a little bit of long-term evidence, but a publication is absolutely strong possibility.
It'll be interesting comparing here to Laramie, because I know it's way colder there. A lot in the wintertime, it seemed like to me it was. I had a warehouse there too, and completely different weather. Cold.
Yeah.
Like real cold.
I think that our growing seasons are pretty similar as far as the days that we have, like our first frost. I usually tell people don't put anything in the ground before June 1st. And it's like 50% chance middle of September that it's gonna freeze again. And I think that that's pretty similar to Laramie. I mean, even a week on both ends, give or take, is still pretty comparable. But yeah, it will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of wind, and wind can really wreak havoc on plants, especially in the winter time. So and that's what's cool about all these spaces out on the west end, is seeing how they deal with wind. Because if they can grow there and do their thing there, they can grow anywhere in town.
I just want to thank you for the information that you're putting out, and not to be on the negative side. If this gets out to the public, it's important that you folks have brought up the water situation and the problems that we have with water, so that folks don't think that we're going out and planting grass all over the place, and in the meantime we're telling them to cut back on their water. I know that's just an issue. That's the way it is. But as far as the information is concerned, I really appreciate it, because we do have a rough time here in Rawlins with grass, and I know I'm having a rough time on my yard, so I appreciate the information.
Yeah, and even, different areas of Rawlins are totally different as far as the weather they experience. And we were talking today how these West End green belts are probably less than a quarter of a mile from Washington Park, but it's night and day. Washington Park is sort of protected. It's a little bit down. It's got the hill there. It doesn't get the wind, and it's, so we're gonna have a bunch of different, really, results from this that we can kind of scratch our heads and go, well, that worked here and that worked over there. Like I said earlier, if it doesn't work, that's not a bad thing. That's why we're doing this.
Well, if you want a place to practice, you can use my front yard.
Take that long.
I'll let you plant all the grass you want.
Aaron Durst volunteered the same thing on his front yard.
I see a trend here, because I almost. Well, I think it's a good experiment. I think it's awesome. All the things you've done already, like around the courthouse. I have a picture in my phone I laugh at every time I go through my gallery, because I drove up one night and it was late, and I had to run in and get some paperwork that and whatnot, and my lights are shining right on them tulips, and it's really a cool picture. But it was like they weren't there the day before, it didn't seem like, and all of a sudden, boom, they're full of flowers, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah,
It's,
lots of colors kind of showing up every day. I enjoy driving by and
Yeah.
seeing like what's popped up today.
Yeah. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Do you have more for us, Jason?
That's it for our presentation, unless the team wants to add anything else, we'd be happy to answer any other questions, if anybody has any.
Are these more of a hybrid type seeding you're doing then? Where it's just multiple seeds going into, or use specific areas of each seed? You see what I'm saying? Like, when you have like this in one seeded area, or is it hybrid through, like everything's
You
mixed?
mean like a combination
Yeah.
of different seeds in an area? Maybe a little of both, I believe. I mean,
Yeah.
some areas will focus on a certain species of grass, of turf, and then others like this, I think the low grow mix. Is
Mhm.
anybody saying this right? So
Yep.
these would be a combination of seeds, just like
Okay.
the slide prior
Yeah.
or after. Those would be a combination, but these other
Okay.
ones could be planted on their
We're
own.
gonna have 3.
And they're all drought resistant?
Yeah, I mean, as much as they can be, because already, I mean, where we're living in a place that gets like, what, 9 inches of precipitation a year, and that's not rain, you know? Like, they should do well, but it's all an experiment for sure. But they're not ones that are requiring 35 inches of rain a year, you
Yeah.
know? That's not what we're looking at or planting.
Okay, because I know some individuals that just had some hydro seeding done, not here, in a similar climate in Colorado, and it's growing really good with the seed that they chose. They chose a very drought resistant seed. I mean, it's more expensive,
Yeah.
but when it's all said and done, I think their watering is supposed to be like once a week maybe.
Yeah.
And you only have to mow it like, I don't know, once a month or something like that. It sounded like. I'm thinking, I'm gonna do that in my yard, right?
Right.
That's what I'm going for, but I didn't know if that's kind of what the strategy is with this stuff too.
Yeah, definitely on the water side, some of these mow-wise will fall into that category. Some of them will probably require more mowing than that. As far as mixes, the Washington Park is one that'll get a mix, and then Rob Roy Park will get the tree on the hill. And then all of the other ones, we're looking at individual species. And part of that is, that's what's happening in Laramie, is that he's looking at individual species.
I can tell you that Bolton Park, the upper end of the south end of it, we get a lot of blow sand around those lilac bushes. I know in my yard, I have a wrestling match with the blow sand that gets on there and then just kills the grass. And is there finding some type of a species of grass that will grow in that type of dirt or sand?
Well, I think that's a lot of what the Weston greenbelts get, is a lot of blow sand.
That's right.
So whatever, hopefully something works there, whatever works there should, also be able to work in some of those environments, I would think.
That would be a little bit on the maintenance end of things. I think we need to not allow that blow sand to encroach into that area, so we'll have to remove it. I mean, when it blows through, whatever damage it does, or, whatever stress it does on those plants, we can't do that. But we can not allow it to grow, because some of that was like 4 inches, like, just sand growing up over there.
I noticed the parks people take a shovel and go along that. We have kind of a retainer wall along Bolton Park there, and that sand just, it builds up high. I used to blame it on the city dumping sand on the snow, for the icy streets and stuff, and then it would just blow. But I think it's just natural
Yeah.
dirt, and if we could figure out a way to do something with that, that'd be the thing to do.
I think Councilman Weisenberg had a good point about mowing. I think that's another outcome that we'll see out of this, is which of these require, what amount of mowing is required. And I wanted to bring up these photos again, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like this island here at Rob Roy Park, we might keep mowed down like general turf grass is, but when we look at like this area, some of those grasses that are taller would look very nice. We wouldn't have to keep it mowed down though. So it's gonna be a work in progress and almost like a living project and study that we're gonna be doing. And I'm super excited to see what happens. And it's, again, these are projects that we were already gonna be doing something anyways, just with the water situation. We didn't wanna plant any kind of plants in here that we can't, get enough water so they can survive. So this really couldn't have been better timing. And I'm excited a year from now to have a conversation the same, have another work session, and have some really cool photos to share with council. Maybe even at the end of fall, we do something like that, and we'll see something. So we will definitely keep you all informed of the progress, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Well, thank you. Oh, Councilman Smith.
I just wanted to say I'm excited that we're partnering with the UW on this project, and I am very excited to see how the outcome is. And I'm going to say one other thing on the last slide, the reddish grass. I always thought it was a weed, and I keep pulling it out of my backyard. I should just mow it, right?
Yeah,
But it's horrible.
If it's cheatgrass, then
Yeah,
you should
I do
pull it.
think it.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but
Yeah.
if you have a sample of it, I can tell you what it was.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's the reddish grass, and it spreads out.
I was going to do a lot of different things. Of course, I'm not up to it yet, but on the west side of our house is lots of grass, like a quarter of an acre, and I hate watering it, and I even hate mowing it. But after listening to you the other day at the town hall about not putting rocks, I was going to put rocks everywhere. So we need to visit, because now I'm confused as to what I should really do. But it's a huge area, and I do not need to be watering that quarter of an acre. We have this year because I don't want it looking like crap, but it looks good from the street, but not when you're on it,
Right, yeah.
That's the grass I was talking about. That, I mean, I'm serious. It can be brown and crunchy, and then water it for a couple times, and it comes back. I've been amazed with it, but it very well could be. Yeah, it's not that clover stuff, because we had that. I've had that before. In Missouri, I went to my daughter's house and I said, I need to see your garden hose a minute to do something on my motorhome. She goes, we don't have one.
Right.
I go, what do you mean you don't have one? How do you water all this stuff? And she says, we mow our lawn 3 times a week. We never water. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I like riding lawnmowers.
Yeah. Well, and as far as the rock goes, it's not that, I think that rock could be a solution for some people, or thinking strategically about pathways or small strips or something like that. But I just like to caution of, it doesn't hold water and it heats things up, and the weeds. I've talked to people in town who, because once you spray weeds, then you have dead skeletons and you still have to go back and pull them.
Yeah.
And so I've talked to people who are spraying their rocks as much as, once a week in order to stay on top of the weeds. And so just thinking about like organic mulches that maybe hold water and maybe break down into the soil, make your soil healthier, they keep things cooler, just some of that stuff.
I thought about doing the mulch between the rocks and the flower beds, and between the rocks and the grass, leave a space where that mulch is around there, and still do a lot of it with rocks just because it's cheaper here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe put a weed cloth barrier under the mulch.
Yeah, I do that. They come through there too, but
Yeah.
I spray. We have some rocks in our yard that are areas like on the corner and whatnot. I just spray them. But the secret there is the minute you see something green, you have to spray. And then if you see more green next week, some of that green didn't get sprayed. So it only kills whatever's green right then. It don't prevent it. It's not a soil sterilant, which you wouldn't dare use in your yard, but we end up spraying 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Whatever we did with this island here at Washington Park, whatever, whether we put turf down or, put sod or grass seed, or what we're doing now, we cut the maintenance time down by 1/3 at least. Or 2/3, cut it by 2/3. I mean, that was a nightmare.
Cause that had the rock in
That
it,
had
cause
the rock.
I think that blow sand comes in and fills up those rocks, and then you have this growing environment for all these weeds,
And
you
then
know?
it's
Cause it's the only thing that will grow in those environments.
Well, in a yard versus a city
Yeah,
is two different characters.
absolutely.
My neighbor keeps that blow sand from building his lawn up by vacuuming it. First time I seen him, I told him, you gotta move. Can't have you here. I used to have a nice yard, now mine looks like terrible compared to his.
Now, that there, on that particular part, there's a lot of Russian olive. And that Russian olive, I think those little round things that fall, I think they got a lot of acid in them or something, because I had it, some property that I owned, and I could never grow grass there. It just, it just, nothing would grow on it because it was right around that tree. And we have a lot of them on that Washington
There's a lot of
Park.
Russian olive in Washington Park, and
Yeah.
we do have a plan.
I like
wouldn't say
'em.
we've really started yet. I mean, we did remove, I think, 7 Russian olives from Washington Park last fall. And we're kind of waiting on the inventory, the grant that we got from the Wyoming State Forestry, that hopefully will be done like November, to basically really address Russian olives. But I think we need to be proactive and start removing Russian olives and replacing, for every Russian olive.
It's not a
we
bad
remove,
looking tree,
we-
except
we
they're
replace
dirty.
two trees in this city, because they take up so much water, nothing around them does well. And, but Washington Park, they're everywhere.
They're nasty to work with, they're stickery.
I
Yeah.
mean, they are a listed noxious weed too in the state of Wyoming, but we do probably have, I bet probably almost 40 in Washington Park.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
When you cut, I tell you what, when you cut one down or tear it out, because we tore the whole roots and everything out, well, the city did, it's a long story, but anyway, by the time it's done, then we had 400 of them.
Yeah,
And you have to just keep at it,
Yeah.
and they just start growing. And every piece of that root must eventually grow a tree, because we've been cutting them down for 5 years.
Yeah,
I mean, they just pop up here and there, and you have to,
yeah.
I try to get them as deep as I can and, pull as much out as I can, but then you just start 3 more, I guess.
Well, and I think in a park setting on a turf grass area, when you remove the stump or the root system and everything, but by just mowing, planting grass and just mowing those little starters can come up all they want, but you keep knocking them down.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
But you don't always have that option because they're not always in a turf or a field where you mow, so they're everywhere in the city, and we really want to, have a plan to start getting rid of them.
Yeah.
One question, just real quick, the trees that's flagged at Washington Park, are those for removal? That's,
Some are removable, but a lot of them are just more of addressing some trimming.
okay, when I drove by, I seen a bunch and I'm like, holy crud, are you gonna lose all the shade here,
I
or?
got a few comments about that, but.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working with the local contractor to trim those, and some of them are dead and just need to be removed. But, and then we had one willow in Washington Park that's quite a bit of a hazard that's gonna come out too. Mostly
Okay.
trimming, a couple will probably go away, but.
I was just curious, I see it every day, I drive by, I'm like,
When we do finalize this tree inventory, it's citywide, so it's gonna not only have parks and downtown, it'll have neighborhood trees that are city-owned. Our last study was done in 2003, so obviously it's outdated, but what we've found is that there's some trees in that 2003 inventory that are labeled end of life, and some of them even that they're dead, but they're still there. So we'll be coming back to council after we get this inventory done to kind of come up with a good plan. Where do we focus first? Safety is always gonna be number one, so some of these end-of-life trees, we learned by removing them that, wow, that's a good thing you removed that, because, 30% of the inside was gone. And so it could fall in the winds or anything like that, so we will be coming back to you. We do have a plan, the city council has budgeted a certain amount every year. I think it's like $18,500 we're asking for next year for tree maintenance and replacement, which is part of the Tree City USA requirements to have a certain number of dollars per resident, basically per capita, to have in the budget to maintain that, not certification, but honor, I don't know what you call it, but anyways, we want to be transparent with council, transparent with our community as far as how we're gonna manage our trees going forward. And we're gonna have a good comprehensive plan, because this city needs it. We rely on our trees. A lot of these trees, you know, a 30-year-old tree, can you imagine the amount of care that went into that tree to be alive 30 years later from when it was this big, you know? And so we wanna maintain those, and again, we wanna replace trees as quickly as we remove them, so we're gonna have a tree replacement plan too.
I hate to cut, well, one more quick.
With that study you're doing, is there a possibility you can divide that out? Because that's part of some information that I'd like to have for possibly widening streets in that Mountain View area in the future. We need to know tree counts and stuff. So is there a way you can separate that out for all that area up there?
It'll come with a comprehensive map system with a map layer for our GIS, so you can actually zoom in on whatever area, I believe. And so like some of these streets up here that you're talking about, you can zoom in and look at those trees and go, oh, hey, look, 80% of the trees along this area with this big availability to expand those roads, 80% of those trees are end of life anyways. And then you feel better about where we go from there, or have a better plan.
Okay.
So yeah,
Appreciate that.
It'll be a great resource for us going forward.
All right, so we can start the meeting on time. I'm gonna declare a 10-minute recess.
Awesome.
We are gonna stay live with sound.
Well, that would all be, if you're talking about those trees, that would all be part of that study that we need.
But some of it's being done, so it makes it cheaper.
Yeah. This is Kenneman.
Just you can sit wherever you're most comfortable. It'll, right here? Yeah, I mean, this isn't always the most comfortable because it's right in the first. You can sit right there maybe, if you want to see better. Do you guys know Jason?
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Glad you're here tonight.
This is the
Hi, Dan. Jason. Jason. Seahawk.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Well, I got down. Getting up, it's gonna be the problem.
How you been?
All right.
Good. Nice
Considering.
nice seeing you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID. Enter your participant ID.
Oh, wait, I should say it to her. Okay. It's good to see you.
You are in the meeting now. You are the first participant.
You?
Please stand
How are
by.
you? Everything is good? No.
Anyway, I was excited about that pink elephant that we're talking about, really excited about. I think, and when I told him, I said, I made sure that when we get so far to where it looks like we might end up with that property and they're gonna be talking about, because they had like 3 plans for that property. And I said, we need to get this committee of these women that we're talking about, this affordable housing or assisted housing, into that meeting so that they can put their 2 cents in. And I support that because I think that there's grants available. You know, we get grants right around the spot, or maybe in higher education, the researcher for us, let them do direct grant writing for us, anybody, so we can snag some grants for getting it started. That'd be the way to go.
I was gonna-
think we're gonna end up where we probably would end up with having to come up with the funds for the abatement of asbestos. And I think there's a program in the state that might help us do that.
That'd be good.
WCDA too, I went to presentation on WCDA, and then USDA could partner with them, and also ARPA funds are available for assisted living, so I think if we can have somebody put that project together, we could get it moved on it.
It's been a long journey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could probably get a planning grant and get it all put
actually
together.
too long. I was telling them, it just was driving me crazy that they're held hostage, you know, on a piece of property that's just sitting there and nobody wants to do nothing. I got a company that owns property on the south side. They're never gonna do nothing. I mean, they're renting two houses on it, but the rest of them are falling down and they're out of there. And I doubt if they ever do anything with it. And so we need to find a way to put pressure on them to either sell it, put them on the market, or tear it down and clean up the property.
Which one is that?
They're on Grant and State. Corner of Grant and State. There's some big houses there. They belong to the Daily. Oh yeah, we bought them. At one time they thought everything was going to take off, and they bought them and they housed some of their reporters there. They're bad houses because they belong to my family, so I know the insides were terrible. And my sister sold them to Eddie Archibald. Eddie sold them to the Daily Times. But the houses sit across property lines, so you can't just sell one house, you have to sell them all. And the garage is all caved in.
What's that house? It looks like it's all like brick. It looks like
That tall one? That's been there for years. I don't know what that was for. They used to have beautiful flowers in there, and they raised, they used to raise turkeys.
I've always wondered what that was.
I don't know if the Robinson family, it's always been their neighbor next door.
Yeah,
And I don't know if they own it or who owns it, but they finish the house a little more. I don't know what they use that for. Guys should do some research on that just to see what they got. It was a nice building. It was brick, you know.
Yeah,
And
and they're big brick.
Yeah,
It's
like
kind of like a castle.
Yeah, like a cow.
Just go off underneath it.
I don't know, but I remember they had flowers, a lot of flowers.
Nobody lives there. This is my grandma. This is what that was.
Yeah, me too. It sticks
Yeah,
out.
and I always forget about it, and they
I bet the cost of tearing that down would be pretty good.
to get those big old bricks, yeah.
I don't know if it has a basement.
Yeah. I don't know, it'd be interesting to see it.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out who put that there, what was the reason. I guess the guy can go to the county assessor's office to start out with,
Yeah.
get a background of who owned it, kind of check in on that.
Would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm selling a house on Maple right now, and it was built in 1982.
Ooh.
And it's right next to that church on the corner.
Uh-huh.
And there was this random door, and we never figured out where it is, but we put a false wall over it because it looked creepy. Because it was all boarded up and cemented, but I think it might have connected to the church at one time.
Did I ask you to join?
No. Trying to think of the house.
Checking the stuff like that, just to see what they had. Because they did a lot of that, downtown, years ago, downtown. We went down those, we all went to different buildings. It was kind of, malls.
There was a story about guys dancing with the council that Pittsburgh lost a pipe and it was living in the basement. So we never went in the basement. We were scared of that. We were scared of him still living down there. I don't know if it's true or not. Just go in the basement.
All right, it is 7:30. You guys ready?
Because the beds.
Whenever you're ready. Well, we can't join the meeting yet. Wait to join it.
To see. I need to research.
Let me refresh and see if it'll do it. Join the meeting? Join the meeting?
Yeah.
Did you get in?
Yeah.
Mine didn't ask. Oh, there we go. Whenever you're ready.
Right across from the railroad. It's called the Annex.
Yes.
Turning it down. And so I took pictures and stuff of it. And,
Exactly.
Yeah, I could.
No.
Daily Times did the research.
All right, the time has come. It is 7:30. And I will call this meeting to order. Would you all please join for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now we have on the agenda roll call, please.
Mayor Terry Wycombe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jacqueline Wells.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Aaron Durst.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Darrell Gardner. Councilmember Davari Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Linda Smith.
Here.
And Councilmember Chris Weisenberg.
Here.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Next thing on our agenda is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion? Councilman Martinez?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for June 14th, 2022.
Second.
There's been a motion made to approve the June 14th agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 meeting. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the City Council regular meeting minutes of May 17, 2022 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the City Council regular meeting minutes of May 17, 2022 as presented. Is there any discussion? I wasn't there, so I'm going to abstain.
Online voting has opened. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 5 yeas and 1 abstain. The mayor abstained.
All righty. The next thing on our agenda is a public hearing. This is when you can speak out about this particular item. This is where we take the information to later make a decision. This public hearing is open, and it's to approve the transfer of Mr. Jack's LLC DBA Three Fiddlers Retail Liquor License number 95 to 307 Horse Racing Inc. DBA Derby Club Rawlins Retail Liquor License number 95. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that item? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing and move to the next public hearing, which is an ordinance for second reading, and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 15.24 for the Rawlins Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 International Codes. Is there anybody that would like to speak to that? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing and open the next public hearing, which is an ordinance for second reading, and waive the reading of the ordinance repealing in its entirety ordinance number 12-2020, and amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 15.12, permits section 15.12.010 and 15.12.020. Is there anybody here that would want to speak to that? Seeing none, we'll close that public hearing. Where are we at here? All right. The next thing on our agenda is a public hearing. I will open a public hearing for ordinance for second reading and waive the reading of the amending of Title 16, manufactured homes, as recommended by Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that subject? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing and open another public hearing, which is for an ordinance for second reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 19, Chapters 19.23 and through 19.28, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that subject? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing and open another public hearing, which is an ordinance for the third and final reading and waive the readings of ordinance for the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that? Seeing none, we will go to the next thing on our agenda, which is public comment. This is a citizens' participation time. There is a time limit of 5 minutes. If the council decides, it can give you more, but it has to be about something that is not on the agenda tonight. And I want to tell you, if you do come up and speak, sometimes we don't address you or engage you, but we do listen. And I don't want you to think if you're speaking that we're just staring at you and not listening and whatnot, because we do take it to heart what our citizens have to say. We do our research and then we come back and maybe make changes. So is there anybody here that would like to speak to the council at this time? Wow. Seeing none, we will move on to the next thing on our agenda, which is a presentation of the Community Builder Award for June 2022. And so I would ask the members of Volunteer Committee to come up.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, I'm very excited about this award tonight. As you all know, the Community Builder Award is a monthly award the city presents to local individuals, businesses, and organizations for their volunteer service, sponsorship, promotion of programs and events, outstanding service in the interest of the city, and for other contributions to the significant to the Rawlins quality of life, and just pure fantasticness too. But I'm going to pass it over to Pam Thayer, and I think she would like to introduce our guest of honor this evening.
Wow. We can just say wow. I am so honored to have this chance to just speak a little bit about Angie Kinnaman. You know, over my years with the city and in involvement in different organizations, there's always this hand out there, just whether it's St. Vincent de Paul or the church group or DDA or the library, or I can go on and on. The Carbon Mercantile, she was instrumental in bringing the Merc to downtown. But this lady is just a tribute to our community, and she just continues to move. So I am very, very honored that this month's winner is Angie Kinnaman.
Angie and Dan, thank you for all you've done for our community. You're amazing people. All right. I do not have that proclamation in front of me. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to hand it to him.
Thank you, sir. At this time, because of our music in the park, there's a proclamation, the City of Rawlins, Wyoming proclamation. Whereas music is known not only to soothe and cheer, but to improve the general health and happiness of people. And whereas the long Wyoming winter has trapped the citizens of Rawlins into continually preparing a meal on Thursday evenings, and whereas food and drink at a reasonable price will be available in Washington Park every Thursday starting June 23rd and running through August 11th, beginning at 5:30. No music with music to follow from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And therefore, I, Terry Wycombe, Mayor of the City of Rawlins, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim Thursday evenings for the dates listed above to be known as No Cooking Thursday in the City of Rawlins, and I urge all the citizens to participate in the annual Music in the Park event and celebrate No Cooking Thursdays. Okay.
I just want to add two things real quick. We are adding 2 events this year from last year, so we're going to have 2 more Music in the Park events. The first one is June 23rd, and the band is Michael Charles. It should be great fun, so come on out to Washington Park, and we'll have a great summer of music planned for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Give me 1 second here. All right, the next thing on our agenda is to appoint someone to the Rawlins Advisory Committee, Recreation Advisory, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, crying out loud. Councilman Smith?
Yes, I move to appoint Katie Adams to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2023.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to appoint Katie Adams to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2023. Is there any discussion?
Is she here?
Are you here?
Come on up.
Come on up and tell us about yourself. Yes. You'll get used to it.
Yes, well, I moved to Rawlins almost 2 years ago now. I'm a physical therapist at Fremont Therapy Group. I've been looking for a good way to get involved in the community and saw the opportunity on the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee and thought that would be the perfect way to be involved.
Awesome. Well, thank you for applying. We appreciate that.
Welcome to Rawlins.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should I say
And you've opened online voting? Okay. Thanks again, Katie.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right. Now we have a board appointment for the Carbon County Visitors Council, Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to appoint Mary Pat Whitfield to the Carbon County Visitors Council for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Mary Pat Whitfield to the Carbon County Visitors Council for a term ending June 30th, 2025. Is there any discussion? The only discussion I would like to say is thank you, Mary Pat, for applying again, and we really appreciate you applying the last time, which you filled a spot that had been open for years. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, online voting is open.
Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is reports, DDA Main Street report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. So it's been a decade since the Rainbow Teton Entrepreneur Center opened its doors. Thanks to a lot of hard work from this council, from the community, from the Wyoming Business Council. In that decade, we have seen over 150 businesses or individuals, whether it was for business plans, marketing, succession planning, accounting, you name it, we've seen them, which is an average of about 15 people or businesses every month for 10 years. So that's a huge contribution to Rawlins and Carbon County. So having said that, we just don't want grass growing underneath our feet, so we decided to take on a new challenge, which is what's coming forward and being rebranded, renamed, new options, new services, and it is now going to be called the Business Innovation Hub, the Hub. And so I have invitations for you guys next Wednesday night from 4 to 6 p.m. We will be igniting at the Hub, getting everybody excited. We'll have some food and drinks and door prizes, but it is really a change of venue there, even painting today, new signage, but more than that, the services. When we started this project 12 years ago when we were at the Business Council, we brought in John Benson, who was the person who started the Wyoming Innovation Center at the University of Wyoming. He was our consultant. We started at the top and wanted to know what we were doing. And he's passed now, but I feel like after I met with him the very first time, my thought was, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of the university program and be an offshoot. And I'm really proud to say, after 12 years, we are now going to be part of Impact 307's facility. They have an office in the building. She will be there. Her name is Megan Curley. She will be there once a week on average, running the Impact Carbon County program. So it is a program for everybody in the county. Jim Drever will still be there for the SBDC. His services are free. And there's a lot more other services. We have a large-scale printer for, not a large-scale, a bigger printer, like if they're doing like different things for their business. We have a light box. We have backdrops to do videos for e-commerce. It's just there's a big change happening and new partners. What's really exciting, and Megan's not here to talk about it, and she's going to be here probably in the next month in front of you guys, and maybe next month for my presentation. There is going to be, they just had one in Fremont County in Riverton and Lander, a business startup challenge, and it will go through, you'll have a boot camp on how to start a business. You'll be picked, and at the end you'll do a pitch just like they do in Cheyenne and Casper and Laramie, and there's a chance to potentially win $50,000 to start your business. And that is all coming in from Impact 307 or Impact Carbon County. Lots of changes in that building, so come on down, everybody, and especially the council. Next Wednesday night I have invitations, so it's really exciting. It's long in the making, and it's just taking that facility and taking it to a new level. And that is one of the city's strategic plans, is to continue to help with more resources for our businesses, for expansion and recruitment. So that's the first exciting news. The second thing is, I got a letter today that we are got our accreditation for 2022 as a National Main Street community. I have some, I'm gonna hand these out so you guys can see this. You know me, I never not have anything for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Let's take a do this one, sorry, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to give you a little recap of the Main Street reinvestment impact, statistics, which are huge, is there are 1,220 Main Street communities across the United States nationally, and we have some now out of the United States. Of those, there's 863 are accredited, which is what we just received in the mail, that we are got our accreditation again for another year. But it's pretty staggering when you look at these investment, that $5.7 billion of reinvestment in locally in all the Main Street communities. 6,600 new jobs, and you guys can read the paper, but I just wanted you guys to see what the Main Street program does nationally. So we did get our accreditation. I have a press release that'll go to the paper, and that again is just everybody's hard work. We talk about our volunteers. We wouldn't be as successful as if it wouldn't have been for our volunteers. Last thing, Summerfest, you guys have a form. Talk about blowing things up. Summerfest, our sponsor, Sandra, is just knocking it out of the park. We are going to have the zip lines, and we're going to have climbing apparatus, and I don't know, it goes on and on. But that is going to be the 8th and 9th of July. So please come down on lots of good things going. And the last thing is just me getting a little sentimental again. Imagine that. Friday was a monumental day that I was standing outside talking to what I always do, the people on the street, just letting them welcome into Rawlins. And Parks and Rec, I want to thank Parks and Rec. I want to thank the water department. But we opened the bathrooms officially on Friday. 10 years in the making. And I just stood there and I watched this car pull up and this mom jump out of the car and this little boy who had to go really bad running to the bathroom. And there was one open so far, we hadn't gotten the second one quite cleaned out. But I mean, just this little boy and watching them run to our public restrooms in the downtown. So 16 years I've been waiting for this restroom. And I'm standing in front of the dream letters and I'm like, I've been dreaming for this moment forever. So anyway, thank you guys, your support, that restroom. In the 30 minutes I stood there doing some maintenance and cleanup, I had 4 cars stop to use that restroom. So, thank you guys.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. All right. Sounds pretty exciting, Pam. Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is the city manager report.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I have a few updates for you tonight. We had a meeting with HF Sinclair regarding the water agreement that they're interested in having with the city. Currently, we've had Wendy and also Kathy is legal for us for this agreement. One of the questions that I heard a council member ask is, do we want to obtain some outside legal assistance as we're entering into potential negotiations? Kathy, I know, is willing and able to do some of this, but I think that there is a good point that anything to do with water, we can't be too careful on. So I just wanted to see if I could maybe get the council's feedback on that.
I would prefer that we hire a regular water attorney because it is such a specialized and important, I don't know how else to put it, but yeah. I want the best attorney we can hire that deals with water.
Okay.
Councilman Weisenberg?
I'd second that too, and I've brought that concern up to you actually, so everybody knows I'm on that page. I had mentioned that and said I think we need to obtain an outside attorney, nothing against in-house or Kathy McPherson, great attorneys. Just I think dealing with the water and what we have and possibly have to offer, I think that's the best way to go at it, so we don't lose or leave something on the table with that. So
I have one question now. There's no consideration to selling water rights, correct? We're just going to sell water.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not selling the rights.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
I think it's very important to have an outside attorney, and also I think this has such a longevity to the agreement and such profound consequences. I think that it does require someone to work with our attorneys to come out with the best agreement that we can come out with. Thank you.
Councilman Martinez?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with the council in hiring an outside attorney. I guess my thinking was that if we're just selling water to them, I don't know if it's really necessary to have an outsider. If we're selling water rights, I could really understand why we would, because they specialize in water rights. Is there a difference?
No, there's a difference. It's selling water rights is
That's one
more
thing.
permanent and would really be scary to me.
Right.
But on the other hand, just selling water and us obligating for water, what happens when our pipes break and we can't give them water, what's in the contract for that, and where do we stand, and where's the ramifications, and I just would feel better with a specialist, and I think we have fine attorneys, it's just, we need somebody with that as their specialty, that's just how I feel.
I understand that.
I agree.
I agree.
Get your answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And the next item, I'm doing this one for Myra, the next city view that we're gonna be sending out. I wanted to see if the council had any ideas on if you'd like a little blurb, kind of like we did last time where you have a little section to talk about something, or maybe it could be, not picking on you here, Mayor, but you could be maybe writing a little article about the city, or just want to see what you'd like to do this go around.
I kind of had a weird idea there, but I'll let Councilman Smith go first.
What I was thinking, I would like to talk about future projects or some of the projects that we've been working on for years. It's gotten to an engineering status, and we're just getting ready to start implementing them. So that would be what I would suggest.
So you're thinking each one of us write a thing?
Yeah, how we feel, what projects we're interested in, that kind of thing.
My idea was really off the wall, but it was we all put a name in the hat. You pull a name out, and then if I pull out yours, I write about you. And
Oh,
you know.
Lord.
No, because there's strong points that we all have that nobody knows about, you know. I'd like to tell the whole community, this guy's been serving the city over 40 years.
42.
You know, and then you go to places like Wham and they give out a 10-year award and they're all clapping, and I'm thinking, this man's been here 4 times that long, you know? And just, who does that? Leaves their house several times a week and deprives their family for 40 years. Linda's incredible expertise, Chris's knowledge, how he's read and very knowledgeable about stuff, and Jacqueline, same way, everybody. But that might not be a good idea.
It's off the wall.
Yeah. We'll each write a blurb.
Just to make sure I understand, do you each want to write a paragraph yourselves, or do you want to appoint somebody to talk about what projects you are particularly interested in?
Sounds like you already know what you want, so you tell us.
No, either one. I don't
Like an
know.
appointment would be nice.
Huh?
Linda?
Well, I think each one of us have ideas of projects we support and things that we want to see done.
We'll do each.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
for that
council.
When's
feedback.
that due?
Just tell us when, Myra.
Tomorrow.
That's probably what I'm gonna
It is coming up relatively quickly.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Another question I have for the council, we put in or submitted to the community our first behind the scenes is kind of like our monthly update. And one of the questions that I know the council's kind of wanted to reduce some of the time on during our city council meetings, and I wonder if instead of like the normal verbal reports that department heads do, would you rather just have that report in that behind the scenes report? Or would you prefer to have that verbal report? I'm just kind of curious because we have talked about how to reduce some time. And then also just a side idea, right now on the agenda item we have a city manager report, and we could maybe change that to say city manager report, staff reports, and then like if any of them have any critical items, they could just bring it up at that time at each meeting, and then it's not like the kind of the long reports that we have. Just some ideas that I'd like to hear council's thoughts.
I like shortening the meetings, but I do like letting the people that are watching listen to the department heads and what they're doing. We might ask them to limit their stuff to a certain amount of time, include it all in the writing, give a short synopsis of it for that reason. And but it's nice to have them here to answer questions too. That's just what I think. But what do you guys think? Councilman Smith?
I like hearing from them when they get up here. I think it's important that the people know what they're doing. That way when they do get a hold of a council member, they can ask a specific question as to what came up in the meeting.
This came up in a discussion about shortening meetings, and the question was asked if we had have done it previously a different way, and we did get just written reports. I love hearing from the staff or the supervisors about what's going on in their departments, but I was thinking if we just have them come about every quarter and then just make reports, and that would streamline the meetings a little bit more.
Yeah, that'll work.
I could understand and see that every quarter, have them come and report, but a written report
Speak into
every.
your microphone.
I was just
Sorry.
saying, oh, you're fine. I was just saying, I understand a quarter, report coming up in front of council, and then just receiving a written report every month.
That makes sense. Councilman Smith?
And the other consideration that we've talked about, other communities have consensus items like payroll, the bills, maybe some other things that we do routinely that we can just agree that we're going to pass it, and then we just by consent do that at the beginning of the agenda, and then we go into and discuss the other things. But that was another way to streamline our agendas a little bit.
And if we're voting on that, then if a person has a problem with one category,
They
they
can-
can pull that out
That's correct.
and vote on that separately,
Yes.
correct?
Okay.
That makes sense.
So we could do quarterly, have them all come up and do a good report on key things that are going on. That sounds great. And then the monthly behind the scenes report that we send out to everyone, that'll be sufficient for the monthly?
Yeah, that's kind of their written report, yeah.
Okay, great.
Then
Awesome.
the consensus,
And then consensus.
yeah.
Well,
That
okay.
would-
Yeah, we can
And
work
we
on
could,
that
we
together.
could work on that, whatever, I'd imagine.
That would save the staff a lot of time too and keep them from having to be here. Which I don't mind them here, I like seeing them, but
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that feedback. And then I have just one other item. We met this morning, just an internal committee that we put together. Councilmember Martinez and Councilmember Weisenberg came, which I appreciate. And we were talking about dilapidated buildings. And the reason we wanted to put that together is because we just want to really tackle it. Like, that's why we put this group together. It's like, let's hash this thing out. Let's see what we can do to address these issues that we have. And I felt like it was a good discussion today, really. There's a few things that we talked about, and one of the things that I'd like to ask for the council's permission is that we'd like to work as a group to craft a policy. Councilmember Martinez has talked about this one for quite a while, of like a penalty policy depending on what's going on with their buildings and they're not maintaining it. We'd like to look at some other communities and come up with like the best policy that we can. Would the council be okay if we as a group work on that and then bring it to council?
I would cheer that on.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things that has come up is that in the past, we could go in and clean a building. That wasn't a problem. But since then, the state has gotten involved, the federal government has gotten involved. It's asbestos abatement, it's whatever, just different problems is making it harder for us to address that problem. And so by setting up a committee to come up with some type of policies that we could, as a council, can vote on and put it in the books so that we could just go right after a particular building if we're having a problem. This is something that has come up in the last few years. Years ago, we could just go down and knock down a building and probably get away with it. It ain't happening anymore. Those things don't happen. I think there was a total of, when I first got on the council, there was like a total between 15 and 20 houses that we knocked down and cleaned up that had to be cleaned up, and we were able to do it because the state wasn't involved and there wasn't a lien to be placed on it so that somebody could collect the money on the lien that we put on cleaning up these buildings. But with a good committee, and they set up some good policies, and this council can look at them and pass it, it will stay with the city. And that's what we came up with, I think, today.
Councilman Smith?
I just wanted to say we used to use the buildings for fire training, but I don't think we can do that anymore. The other thing I wanted to let the council know is that we had 5 different legislators visit with us at WAM this week. And I believe that the lien on abandoned buildings resolution was passed by WAM, but I also heard one of the legislators bring that up as something that they were looking at in the legislature, and they called it Rawlins as abandoned building legislation. So I'm just mentioning that to tell you that it's got their attention, it's on their radar.
And Wendy had some good updates for us if you want to take a second.
Okay.
So in addition to the resolution that WAM is sending up to the legislature, very happy to hear that. I'm working on MOU with the county regarding the lien process to support us. At the same time, we'll be keeping an eye on the legislature because that's basically what they're addressing as well. With this policy committee, my focus as the attorney is going to be an ordinance survey throughout the state to see what other municipalities are doing, a case law survey to make sure that anything that we enact takes property rights into account so that we can be the most fair we possibly can be and not violate anyone's property rights. The case law survey is going to be the big part of that. We have access to the folks who own a couple of the blighted hotels that everybody are worried about over on Spruce. We actually have contact with that owner now, and we are working on a process to allow us to be a licensee to be able to go in and do the inspections that are required. Another one of the things we're looking at is part of the committee may be some sort of task force between our 3 code enforcers. So where they go out, they have a checklist of what constitutes a high-risk building. They go to that building and they make a determination throughout a checklist, and we move forward from there. So we have a lot of good ideas that came out of that committee, and my focus is going to be on what the legislation is doing, what other municipalities are doing, and property rights issues. Oh yes, the Carbon County, we've had conversations between Gwen Bartlett and the county attorney, and we are looking for the MOU to allow the lien process to move forward. One of the things that was brought up in the legislative meeting was that city municipalities have a limited lien. They have to renew the lien every 6 months. If you do not do that, or if your county doesn't allow you to do that, the lien falls off. What counties have the power to do is have a never-ending, perpetual lien on properties, and that is one of the things I'm trying to work in with that MOU, is that with them assisting us with that we be able to have the perpetual lien rather than one that renews every 6 months. Yeah, and it would be an MOU between the 2 parties. I think that was it.
Councilman Martinez?
One of the discussions, first of all, last year the city of Rawlins entered into introduced a resolution at the WAM conference, and every community jumped on the bandwagon and it was passed. Then it was sent down the line, but it never got to the legislature. They never got it to a committee. This year, I happened to get to the WAM conference in Laramie, and the city of Cheyenne got a hold of me and said, "Hey, DeMar, let's bring that back up." So they brought it back up because they're having the same problems, and it flew automatically, went down the line all the way, and hopefully this year the legislature would pick up on it. If it means that 6 months is not long enough, so be it. But one thing it does do is it puts pressure on these people that live out of our community, that own these properties, that will have to do something about it. They'll have to act. And that's, I think, is what's been my goal, is to try to find a tool so that we could get a hold of these companies back east or wherever they're from and saying, look, we got this dangerous building problem, And we're having to use police protection, fire protection, and get them to listen to what our complaint is, and maybe they'll jump on the bandwagon and get a hold of the municipality.
I think last year the problem, I looked into that a little bit, like why didn't that move forward last year? Well, last year was a budget session for the legislature, and those buildings would have actually had to be on fire to get their attention, so.
And I would
hopefully
agree with
this
that
year.
if other legislations didn't come up that had nothing to do with
There
the
were
budget
some.
either.
Yeah, there were some. All right.
And then lastly, we talked about Brownsville Grants and doing some assessments of some of the dilapidated buildings so that we can be able to apply for grants. And then we did talk about, I know maybe it was a year ago, we talked about a URA at the city and doing like a tax increment financing so that if we do fix up these buildings, that we can be able to take some of that revenue from what we put into a building. We want to have something back so we can reinvest that in a new dilapidated building and fix, have that be a perpetual revenue source. But that's something I think we need to, I would like it, if the council's okay, I'd like to explore that a little bit more. And maybe we bring in an expert to talk about that and explore the possibility for Rawlins. So I think that was kind of everything we talked about today.
Another thing in regard to that, I thought it was our decision that we would set up some kind of a committee to look into it. This is a subject that's really, really touchy because it involves the county, it involves the county taxes, it involves the property of the folks here in the community. And so we want to be real careful that what we do is we're doing the right thing and we're not hurting anybody.
That's all I have here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That all sounds pretty exciting. Next thing on our agenda is the city attorney report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I attended the WHAM conference last week along with some of our other council members, and I was most interested in the legislation that's moving forward, and I intend to keep an eye on that and see where that goes. I also met with the director of 307 Impact and did a tour of the UW campus and all of the work that they do for outside communities, and I'm very excited about that partnership with DDA. That is going to be absolutely amazing for our economy and the opportunities. I already went through the items that I'm working on for the committee that we're going to form for the dangerous and dilapidated buildings. I'm also working on several different contracts and MOUs for Bird, for our golf cart usage through the county. I'm working on ordinances both in the criminal and in the civil realm. I've got a lot of pans in the fire right now, and I welcome any further direction that anyone has for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Weisenberg.
After last year, because we didn't have an MOU with the county on the golf courts, correct?
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'm interested in not even letting them use them after what they damaged, honestly. That's my perspective on it, but it's up to council to say.
And if that's what the council wants to do, I'm fine with that. The MOU is to try to avoid that issue that we had, but I'm more than happy to not.
It's up to Jason.
Well, even before the issue last year with the damage, Sean and I had talked about not allowing any of our property or anything like that to go out without an MOU. So we were planning on presenting an MOU. The damage that occurred just made that, our stance even stronger. They did pay for the repairs in a timely manner, but I think the idea and the intention of an MOU is to protect the city of any further damage, not only to the property as far as the golf carts, but to the persons using it. And the MOU, talks about who's qualified or not qualified, but who can operate it, and it has to be a county employee. So it's up to the council. If we don't wish to allow them to use our golf carts, that's an option. The MOU, as Wendy said, is to protect ourselves.
Okay, Councilman.
You would think that, Sean, or Jason, that you would be able to put something together with the city attorney and then present it to the council so that we could take action on that's the way I would work it. I think the mayor's probably right, is that because you work with it daily, that you understand it a lot better than a council member does. I have no clue on the
process is,
golf
I
cart.
drafted an MOU and then presented it to Wendy for review, and I believe Wendy is communicating with the county, so we're not just gonna surprise an MOU, and Wendy could probably address that.
Okay.
Right now, it is at the county attorney's office. She has it, and she is going to take it to the county commission to explain what it is and what it's about, and we are going to tweak it from there and get it in place before the fair.
Okay.
When we had the meeting between the city and the county, we were talking about more collaboration and working together. This MOU protects us, and so I'm all for having an MOU with them and allowing them to use it. If they paid for the damage last time, though, with an MOU in place, they'll undoubtedly pay for it next time, and it's a neighborly thing to do.
It is in process.
Okay.
Pam, you had something?
Just from a standpoint of collaboration is, I think it would be great when vice versa for them, but when they use those at the fair, I think it would be great to have a cling or something in the window saying that we are contributing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just sharing that message that the city is collaborating with the county at this fair, because they are used a lot. But I think just that in the MOU that they have to recreate signage, because I think that shows the collaboration, because people don't know that there are golf carts. They just see them.
Well, and when there's an MOU in place, I know if I were the person signing the rental or whatever, everybody would know there's an MOU in place and you get to pay for the damage. Or they do, or you know what I mean? Rather than, hey, here's some toys. So I'm all for the MOU and I'm all for letting them use it.
I am too.
You, Linda? Where you at?
Is the MOU coming back to the council for approval?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We did it last year. I don't have a problem with it.
No, it will clear both the county and our council.
And I think Pam has a great suggestion.
Yeah, I do too.
I like that, what Pam suggested. It's an advertisement for the city, pretty much, say we did this.
Yep. You have anything more, Wendy?
I do not, sir.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is direction from the city councils to city manager and city attorney. I'm going to start out on a real positive note. I went to the town hall meeting, barely made it. That was an amazing thing that happened there. A lot of people got information they needed to get. It settled down a lot of questions I was getting. I thought it was very well done, very knowledgeable people. I had a lot of comments about, anywhere from the engineer, all the people up on that stage answered the questions. I think the people were, not necessarily satisfied that it is what it is, but they were satisfied with the answers. Another positive experience I had when I come out of the hospital emergency room, as I was walking out, I was wobbling like a newborn giraffe or something, and there was about 10 people standing there, and one person, and that was Officer Craig, said, "Do you need help? Can I help you? What do you need?" And it just really meant something to me that that person would say that to me in that setting. And so I want to thank your officer there, Chief. He's a great guy. The other thing that happened since between then and now, or since I had surgery or whatever, was the community cleanup. And Brian and Myra did just an incredible job of getting people together. It was a great turnout. I didn't go. I went and ate. But I didn't go because I can't bend over to pick stuff up. But there was a lot of people there, and that would not have happened without those two people pushing and shoving to get that done. So that's all I have to say, and you guys keep up the good work. Thank you. Councilman Smith?
Yes, I'd like to give some shout outs to staff too, particularly to Andrea Hammond, Sean and his staff. We did get the $675,000 from the State Land Investment Board for the water project. When we were at WAM, we were able to speak to the lady at USDA, and they're really excited to partner with us as we put together our financing for the large replacement projects and also for the smaller projects on repair. And also WCDA was at the table with us this at WHAM, and they are in charge of all the CDBG grants, and so that was a very positive exchange. And so I'm really excited, and I just want to say you're doing a great job, folks.
Vice Mayor Wells?
I have one to add too. The new weight room looks amazing. It's really top notch. So very excited to use it.
Can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but
It's beautiful.
Councilman Weisenberg?
Just on a notification, the retaining wall on 9th Street that is deemed unsafe, I did notice that contractors are there and tore it out in the middle of replacing. So, I mean, if we can get an update on that when they're done, I'd appreciate it. I just happen to live close by and drove by, and I had to drive down the alley because I'm like, it's finally getting done. But, you know, I appreciate the work on that, so.
All right. If there's nothing else, I will move on.
Thank you so much for all the comments. I'm sure everyone appreciates that.
I hope your heads all fit out the door. But doing an amazing job. I went to the recycling center. There's another Brian too that works there. That recycling center, Pat, is being run really well. They were grabbing stuff out of cars and running it in there. They were working their tails off, and there were car after car, and the place is clean. It makes you want to go back. Anyway, all right. Next thing on the agenda is a resolution. I would entertain a motion to. Vice Mayor Wells?
I move to approve the joint resolution amending the 2019 specific purpose tax escrow account escrow agreement to permit the Carbon County Treasurer to make distributions from 2019 specific purpose sales and excise tax collections.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the joint resolution amending the 2019 specific purpose tax escrow account escrow agreement to permit the Carbon County Treasurer to make distributions from 2019 specific purpose tax and excise tax collections. Is there any discussion? Councilman Weisenberg?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna have someone here to put some clarification of what this is totally about.
Lynn, would you like to, or Sean, or somebody?
That's someone from the county was.
Somebody, county was working with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So there is, Bev did send to me from finance, and it has been uploaded, an explanation. It is on board docs of, it's the special purpose tax joint power board. It's just a document that they had sent out amending the agreement. The reasoning, there's 5 bullet points that I had uploaded when I made this slide the other day, last week. The reasoning behind the amendment of, excuse me?
Oh, sorry, I was gonna ask if you could read them, so.
Sure. Number 1 is the reasoning behind the amendment is to the agreement is because there's no current mechanism in place to fund the board. Number 2, from the inception of the board issue and preceding events leading up to the issuance, it was always the intent of the parties that the board would obtain funding through the specific purpose tax dollar in perpetuation amounts based on the bonding entirely percentages only. Number 3, because the board's function is the oversight and issuance of the bond, funding for its operation will only be paid for with tax dollars obtained for the bonding entirety. Municipalities involved in the specific purpose tax ballot question that opt not to bond will not carry any of the burden of the board operation funding during the bond issue. The reason that this is required for the non-bonding entities to approve the joint resolution is because there is still a part of the joint power board. Hold on 1 second. Number 4, the ballot question allows for the payment of the operation and maintenance, which can be read to apply for the operation costs of the joint power board, which required to facilitate payment of debt service on the issue, the JPA bonds as the Joint Powers Board as a bond issuer. Number 5, the original escrow agreement depicts that the treasurer shall disperse each non-bonding entity's share as tax distribution in full monthly. No specific purpose tax dollars will be withheld from the city of Rawlins, and it is not financing its specific purpose projects through bond issues.
So if you want an overview from a dummy's point of view, most of the cities that were in this 6-penny tax thing bonded.
Yes.
We did.
So there's an expense to bonding. Okay, where Rawlins did not bond, there is no expense for that bonding. This stuff is to clarify that and how we get paid, because it was never clarified how we would get paid. So this is just basically clarifying how that money goes into that Joint Powers Board and how it comes out to us, because we're different than the other cities. Does that make sense?
Makes more sense that way, because my understanding was we paid them 1% of that is the way it was presented, and so on $1 million they'd get $10,000 of that.
Well, and
money,
we might have to pay for that, because there is an expense for that board to meet, and their mileage and their meals and their whatever. I don't know about that, but they can't pay us without this deal, because there was no provisions to pay us where we're not bonding. Clear as mud?
Well, and I'm sure there's expenses like with an audit and QuickBooks and all the stuff they'd have to do to manage that
Yeah.
funding.
Right, and there's bookkeeping involved, there
Yeah.
just is. And a lot of it, I might add. And then on the bonding end, it's heavier, but in that, it describes that we're not gonna be paying for the bonding expenses, because we're not bonding. Okay? All right, so any further discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed, the motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is the second reading of an ordinance. Jacqueline?
I move to approve second reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 1524 Building Codes and adopting the 2021 International Codes.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the second reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 15.24 Building Codes and adopting the 2021 International Building Codes. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
I just want a point of clarification. In the past, they had brought up that the sprinkler system was included in updating the international building codes. Is that something that is included in this?
So I actually have a really tight time crunch to adopt this. We were supposed to have it adopted a couple of months ago, and with the pushback we got with the sprinkler systems last time, I felt that at this time I'm gonna keep that out and then come back to you guys with more presentation, working with fire and everything, if that's something we wanna tackle again.
Okay, so it's out currently?
Yes, it's
what we're
deleted.
presented. Thank
Yep.
you. That's all I needed. Thanks, Ariel.
Yep.
What change is actually taking place here?
So initially, it's just adopting the new international 2021 building codes versus the 2018.
Can you tell me the difference? Or some of the main differences?
So there really isn't any main differences in those codes. I did go through them very thoroughly, and they just structure them differently every 3 years. The committees with the ICC go through them and make minor changes, but there was nothing large that stuck out to myself nor Lou Lascano.
I just worry about updating them to the newer ones and then ending up with a bunch of crazy stuff that doesn't fit Rawlins, and sprinklers is one example, but I don't want to place more burdens on people than we need to. You know, there are places that are still in 2012 building codes because they didn't want to present their people with overdue burdens, but
Right. I don't believe there's any overdue burdens in here. Most of the stuff that's addressed is life safety and making it the best possible means of construction. With all the new types of materials coming out, they have to establish different codes and design standards on those different types of construction materials.
sure, okay. Councilman Martinez?
Mr. Mayor, and you and I have talked about this, at least I've talked to you about it. On this code, is it going to address the building, putting a building on a piece of property, the distance between the property lines? Because it was like, what, 3 foot or 4 foot or something? And
So that's going to be addressed in Title 19, but we did take that right out of the International Building Code on the fire separation between buildings. In Title 19, our standard was 10 feet from any other structure, but if you use the proper material and everything, you could technically go closer up to right against a different structure depending on what type of material you use, but it is generally 3 feet versus 10.
okay.
That's a good move. Okay. Anybody else? Please open online voting. Thank you, Ariel. You'll be back.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is another ordinance. It's a second reading of an ordinance. Councilman Smith?
I move to approve second reading and waive reading of ordinance repealing in its entirety, ordinance number 12, 2020, and amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 15.12, permits section 15.12.010 and 15.12.020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
For the purpose of this, now it's seconded.
Okay. There's been a motion and made and seconded to approve second reading and waive reading of ordinance repealing in its entirety, ordinance number 12-2020, and amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 15.12, permits, section 15.12.010 and 15.12020. Is there any discussion? You have a question, Councilman Martinez?
Well, again, could you explain what the changes are?
So this is going to be your flat work ordinance that has come to you a few different times, and we've taken it to the Board of Adjustments and Planning Commission to review that. We did come before you to change that to make it where we wanted to require permitting for flat work. We did that for a summer and realized that maybe that's not the best route to go. So we changed that ordinance to allow the flat work without a permit. But if you are doing work in a right-of-way, say sidewalk, curb, gutter, or whatnot, then you would be required to pull a building permit to do that and get inspections.
And this is to move it up to 250 square feet, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is another ordinance, a second reading, Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve second reading and waive the reading of ordinance amending Title 16 manufactured homes as recommended by Planning and Zoning and the Board of Adjustments.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the second reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 16 manufactured homes as recommended by Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments. Is there any discussion? And I guess you can tell us what this changes,
So,
if you would.
yes, this change, Title 16 manufactured homes and mobile home parks were meshed all together. Manufactured homes and mobile home parks or trailer parks are completely different things. So we have, say, the RV park over on South Side, the TA or KOA. That is completely different than a trailer park for manufactured homes. So what I did in my adoption of the International Building Codes is I added in there the NFPA standard 1194. That standard outlines the standard for recreational vehicle parks. It is completely different than a mobile home park. So essentially we went through that code and removed everything that had to do with recreational vehicles. And we are covered now by this 1194 for our KOA and those campground places.
So are the regulations for the campgrounds going to or for the manufactured homes in those parks going to change? For like manufactured mobile homes in a mobile home park, are those regulations going to change or just the RV?
The RV. So what is really different in those situations is like your utility hookups. In a recreational vehicle park, you can have just like a plug-in for your trailer or your smaller water lines and not have that tie into a main line versus if you were at a mobile home park.
Different hookups.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit more with that too, since sitting on planning and zoning, I heard all this already too, but when you have a manufactured home park compared to a RV park, you have to have paved roads and everything else in there are supposed to have. There's a lot of stipulations, so it don't make it affordable. Have to have curb and gutter around every spot, so it's a great move to get out of that and let it be a designed area where it can be pulled through, not have to have curb gutter, pavements, all that stuff with that. But as far as like any changes, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the mobile home park, there is a change for setbacks in that, and it's gonna go from 10 foot, I believe, to 8 foot, I believe is what it is, because a lot of people, I'm myself included, living in this town for so long, I never realized that like Circle Cross Trailer Court is diagonaled in there, and so any kind of development or other new trailers coming into that mobile home park, they cannot legally put them in there because of the setbacks. So we went through a process, looked at it all. It was not, there's no argument from the fire standpoint. There's no way to get behind the trailers anyways. They're gonna have to fight them from the front. So there really wasn't a big concern of that. So the change will go from 10 foot to 8 foot, I believe there. So there is a change with that.
So that is actually addressed in Title 19.
Okay.
We broke it up into a private mobile home park versus, or a private mobile home lot versus a mobile home park in our setbacks. So that's addressed in Title 19.
And that's our next agenda item.
Okay, so there are some setbacks coming.
Yeah.
It'll be changed. Just so you're aware.
Anybody have any questions, Ron? And
That sound like what Darryl was talking about is exactly what we needed, yes.
okay, I just knew you were here and want to
Thank you.
want to make sure you're happy, because I have to leave this building. All right. So, is there any other discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is a second reading of another ordinance. Councilman Smith.
I move to approve second reading and waive the reading of ordinance amending Title 19, Chapters 19.23 through 19.28, as recommended by Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded to approve the second reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 19, Chapters 19.23 through 19.28, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustments. Is there any discussion? And I'll just have you tell us what about it.
Okay.
I read this stuff, but sometimes it's really hard to figure out what actually is changing, so.
Right. So, as you all know, we rescinded Title 19 last summer, and we had some really good changes in that rescinded Title 19 for our residential lots within our city, with allowing our citizens to build larger garages and structures on their lots. So that is a huge thing that we worked with our citizens, we worked with our board members, and we felt that our previous, or the Title 19 that we're working on now, is very restrictive on the size of structure or garage you can have on your lot, depending on how tall your home is, the square footprint of your home and everything. So we essentially just went back to what we rescinded from in that title. We're allowing the max height of a garage to be 25 feet in height. The max square foot could be 125% bigger than your home square footprint. And then we didn't do anything with the setbacks on the lot except the 10-foot separation from any other structure. Like I said, we inserted the table right out of the International Building Code. Depending on what building material you're using is dependent on the setback from another structure. So that also helps with our residents and how they can build. We do still have it in there that they must maintain 30% open space on their lot, so we don't have just lots completely covered. Another huge change that we had in here is we're proposing to allow a citizen to build a garage on a private lot and not be required to build a residential structure within 12 months of that. This has been a huge thing, talking with citizens and during our meetings, that people have lots, and that was their intent when they bought the lot, is to build a garage to store their toys or their campers or whatnot. And to myself personally, and to a lot of feedback that I have gotten, is that I would personally rather see a garage with their stuff inside that garage than just an empty lot piled. So that was another big change in there. And then another one, we touched base with it on Title 16, but we did modify the setbacks for mobile home parks versus mobile home lots. So those setbacks, the front would be 10, side 8, rear 8, versus 10 and 10. That way those mobile home parks can fit those larger trailers in there, because with the design standard now, they're larger. But in a private residential mobile home lot, we kept the setbacks at 25, 8, and 15.
Every change you have mentioned, I've had so many calls on every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The one case, a lady's house burned down. City told her you got to get rid of it, so she went to the bank, borrowed money to haul it off. Then she couldn't sell the lot because the guy wouldn't buy it because he wasn't going to put a house on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this lady strapped. I mean, she barely was making payments, starving, and couldn't sell it. And it just ripped my heart out. And she sold it anyway. And because I, expressed the fact, stay tuned, that will be changed. And because everybody had the same sentiments. And with our smaller lots on South Side, it's really really inhibiting to have some of those things. And I think the present thing is like your garage can only be 80% as tall as your house, so you have to buy a convertible and lay down in a seat as you drive in. That's nuts. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you all took time. These are very important things to change, and I can't believe you got them all changed in one fell swoop, but it's awesome that you come to that. I mean, the boards and a lot of people working on this, but it happened fairly quickly, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I also want to thank Lou Liscano. We've kind of tag teamed this one as well. He put a lot of work into this, and so did Sonia, preparing for our board meetings and everything.
Teamwork. Yep.
Yes.
Councilman Weisenberg?
I think, I just want to note that the secondary structures, allowing them to build a garage on a individual lot without a house, it's a big accomplishment. Could be a lot of development coming. The thing that is good in there is they still have to meet the setbacks to allow for a home in the future to be built if someone was to buy it,
yeah.
or the setbacks are still going to be there for that reasonings. So it's not just that someone's over there building this monster garage on a private lot next to someone's house, And,
Well, I have 3 of them
so-
within a block from my house, and they're the best neighbors. They're never there. The dogs don't bark.
Yeah.
They don't have loud mufflers. Maybe once a month or something. I mean, they don't bother me at all.
But I like the change allowing that. It'll allow some development to come, I believe, so.
Yeah. Councilman Smith?
Yes, I think we heard a lot about affordable housing and the need for it in the future, and Rawlins is not going to be immune to that. And anything that we can do to encourage infill and building on our current lots will save big, huge developments. I'm not opposed to that, but it'll help people have affordable housing on the current lots.
Well, with the wind blowing like it is today, it's not snowing, but even on a beautiful day like today with the wind blowing, sure nice to have a garage to pull into.
Yeah.
So, all right, any more discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open.
Wow, that's almost there. One more reading.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is an ordinance about the budget. I would entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance for the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance for the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget. Any discussion? Want to talk us out of it? Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a second, and I'm gladly going to turn this over to Tom right now.
Okay.
But so I just wanted to thank all the department heads for all the work that's gone into this. It really is a ton of work. And Tom has come in, and just within a couple of weeks, he's already put in a lot of good new information, and I know that he has plans to bring in a lot more great information for the council and different reports that I think will be valuable to the council in the future. But I'm going to turn the time over to Tom right now to just hit on some highlights and see if you have any questions.
Okay, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Just kind of a few highlights of what is in our budget. This year, the total expenditures of all funds totals $41,865,000. Of that, 51% of those budgeted expenditures are within our general fund, which is going to be our largest fund for expenditures. Within the general fund, you look at the revenues within there, and the largest category of revenues is going to be our taxes, between our sales tax revenue, property taxes, and we are projecting for this next year, as you could see within the budgets, modest increases in the sales tax revenue. The economy right now, especially statewide, is experiencing gains in the energy sector, where more money's being spent collecting more sales tax. And as inflation occurs, also one of the things is with higher prices comes increased sales tax. So we are seeing, we are projecting an increase there as well as in the mineral and the severance taxes. On the expenditure side within our general fund, right about 60% of our expenditures are going to be salaries and benefits. And so 60% goes into the hands of the employees. We do have within the budgets, we do have included in the budgets a 3% increase, COLA increase in salaries. And that's just included within, and an 8% increase in health insurance premiums. Each year those premiums increase, and those are included within the budget. One change from the second reading of the budget to the third reading that you have is we received a sizable increase in our workers' compensation rates. And those are based on a 3-year rolling average of claims. And so our rates went from about 3.35% on gross payroll to about 5.58%, an increase of about $126,000 within the general fund. That is going to be offset with a new revenue stream with the horse racing that was passed last month. We are expecting about a $75,000 increase in revenues over the course of fiscal year 23 for horse racing. One thing within the budget books that you have that you'll see is missing, that is a critical part, is our fund reserves. The reason that they are missing in there is that we're a year behind on our audits. And I couldn't within a week of working on this come up with an accurate amount of those reserves. So I felt reluctant to put those in. Once I have those reserves, I will definitely share those with you and how it affects this budget as far as our cash reserves go. About 21% of our overall budget is in the enterprise funds, which consists of the water, the sewer, landfill, recycling, and a large portion of those revenues come from charges for services. And where we would have increases there, our revenues will increase slightly in those areas.
Is there accounting for the water rationing? Because that will limit the amount the city's gonna collect also.
Of it is sold, I believe so, is there, Sean?
I don't think you're saying that the revenue would decrease based
Yeah,
on
like
that.
my water bill last summer was 300, this year's probably gonna be 100.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I don't think that we decrease the revenue very much for that, but that's something that, with us looking at the rate increases too, that will probably be offset by the time we do some rate increases.
I just thought about that the other night.
Yeah,
that
that's a good
that could be
observation.
a lot of money.
Yeah, that's true.
Currently, the city employs 123.94 FTEs or full-time positions, and that's an odd number because a position is 8 hours. And so if you add up all the 8-hour increments, it comes to 123.94 employees. With that, I would entertain any questions that you may have within the budget book.
Just real quick, if I may be, just
Sure.
a couple of things I wanted to add to this, just for clarification. So the capital budget that the council looked at, it is built into the budget, but it's gonna be frozen with this until the council's ready to move forward with it. And I think in just, 2 or 3 months here, when we get this audit finished up, we'll come back and rediscuss the capital items that we want to move forward with. So just wanted to clarify what that looks like. And then any new position, there aren't any new positions being proposed here. The only one that isn't frozen that we're proposing is the HR specialist to help everyone out. So I think that's the clarification I wanted to give.
Councilman Weisenberg had a question?
Yeah, for legal, do we need to amend the motion to put in there, to freeze all capital expenditures? Because if it's not in there, it's not.
That was already voted by the council, however, you can change the motion and make the vote based on that. It's already been moved, but absolutely.
I never heard it moved and voted on the last time a vote to freeze it. There's never an amendment to that.
I think there was a consensus, but I don't know
It was a
about
consensus, but not a formal vote.
Right, that's what I
So,
believe.
I mean, I'd move to amend the motion to freeze all capital expenditures from the budget.
I made the motion.
So, I'd like to put in there, in that though, that we need to excuse the enterprise funds for use at this point in time though, because that's
An impact.
impact assistance funds in that, to be able to be used.
Do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Do I have to say all that?
You could say yes.
I will accept the friendly amendment with the freezing of the capital.
Capital with the exception of
With the exception of the
special purpose tax projects as well as the
Impact assistance.
impact assistance.
Sorry.
All right.
And
I don't know who's second.
we kind of discussed this one before, but there's just a few capital items that we wanted to move forward on, like the K9 vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just a few.
With the
small
exception
ones.
of the K9 vehicles and what was the other ones?
Handguns, equipment to
The
go with
handguns.
ammunition, and tasers.
With the exception of those things.
And Parks and Rec, we wanted to do the roller skates so that we could actually use that during the winter time. It's a small item.
Okay.
Was there anything else, guys, that I'm missing?
We'll just keep
Do
adding.
you guys have all
capital
that?
items in there.
I'm sorry.
No, they were already in there, but.
Yeah, but not to just run out and spend it and use it.
Some of those are time sensitive price wise.
Yeah, that's why they've already started the process for the K9 vehicles and the guns.
Isn't that impact assistance?
I think.
The
yeah,
guns
some-
aren't, but
Yeah. Some of that was impact assistance, I believe.
yeah,
And that's why I was saying to make the exception of impact assistance funds.
because the impact assistance funds are already there, and we don't have to wait on our,
Exactly, and I'm just asking.
and
for-
our water projects are all in impact
Yeah.
assistance, so
I
we
just-
can't.
For clarification to council, I just want to see that frozen due to the fact of the revenues and stuff of what we're seeing, and this is just temporary until we get audits in and know our cash carryover and we can.
And our
see-
cash flow and
and our
everything
cash
else,
flow
yeah.
and everything, because we don't see that until November, a lot of that stuff, so I mean, if this.
By
they
then we'll know.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the purpose of this.
So, yeah, if just the items that we mentioned, whether they were in impact or whether they're in capital, I can't, trying to find that right now. If we could have those go through, that would be great.
Yeah, Mayor, the.
Regardless of whether they're on impact or not. So
Yeah.
we'll be fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something if I could.
Yes.
The impact assistance has all of the money that we're spending on the repair of the water line and that, and I don't want anything to hamper that project.
I don't know who seconded my motion, but.
I think the bar did.
You accept that
Do you
amendment?
accept that?
I do.
Good.
I do.
For the
That
amending.
motion's only 4 pages long, but
Okay,
Thank you.
so, motion.
thank you. I needed clarification. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So there's,
I appreciate the
I have a
support.
question too.
yes, Councilman.
In regard to our reserves, when we get the audit, if there's a change, would you have to come back and amend the budget to fit that?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct, that's what we do.
Okay. Okay, because, I don't know, I just got a feeling there's gonna be a change.
There'll be a few, I bet.
Is the council ready, or?
Can you read that motion,
um,
Councilman Smith?
I just want to make sure that we have the 4.5, the 4 million in reserves and the 500 required is still there. And what you're talking about, Tom, is the carryover that we would have that could be up to 2.4 million or whatever we might have of reserve coming back out of carryover.
Correct.
Okay.
That's in addition to the emergency reserve.
Thank
So the
you.
emergency reserve is
Yes.
not touched.
Okay.
Right, two separate things. Thank
Awesome,
you.
thank you.
Can you read that motion just to make sure we're okay?
So the amended motion reads, move to approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance for the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget with the capital expenditures frozen with the exception of the items funded through impact assistance funds.
Did you include the handguns, the canine vehicle, the tasers, and the roller skates? And the equipment to go with the handguns, sorry.
And law enforcement items? Or do they have more?
Specify them. It's guns, accessories, and ammunition,
Yeah.
and tasers.
Tasers?
Is that worded okay with you, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Tasers, weapons?
Gu-
Tasers, handguns, accessories, ammo, and the 2 canine vehicles.
Councilman Weisenberg.
Yeah, I know Sean and I had talked extensively on this budget a few days ago, and I just want to see ammunition as a supply. And I had mentioned this to him. There's a lot of confusion and stuff like that up with handguns and then holsters and everything else, and then nothing was ever mentioned about ammunition. But ammunition is a supply. It should not be in on a capital. It should be a supply.
Well-
It actually is. It was moved to
So
under
it
our,
Tasers, handguns, accessories, ammo, and
So thank you. Yeah, I just was wanting to let everybody know that was a conversation because it's a every year deal. There should be supplies.
And ammo is so hard to get. If
Yes.
they've got a lead on ammo, they better be getting it.
And the guns, really.
Did you read about that guy in Cheyenne? Had an ammunition deal, went to prison because he didn't pay his employees in withholding to the tune of several $100,000, and the state went after him and the feds took him to jail. But he had an ammunition thing in Laramie, but he lived in Fort Collins, but he didn't have workman's comp on him. He didn't send in their withholding. And there's a lot of those companies doing that. They pop up, they make ammunition, then they're gone. There's been 3 of them in this county since I've paid attention when we were
Kidding.
commissioners. There were 2 up at Jeffrey Center, or at Jeffrey City, I mean. Yeah. Big money in it, but they gotta pay a lot of taxes, a lot of oversight.
Just added in, while we're being specific, that we need to be able to spend on 6 penny, so we're just adding that in there.
Okay,
You guys ready?
we're ready.
Okay, so now the motion reads, to move and approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance for the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget with the capital expenditures frozen with the exception of items funded through paid through 6 Penny and through the Impact Assistant Fund, and tasers, handguns, accessories, ammo, K-9 vehicles, and roller skates.
Correct.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes?
That's exactly what I said.
Easy for her to say. Okay. And you accept that as a friendly second? Okay.
I did.
So you both are first and second, you guys
Yes.
are,
Yes.
okay? Okay, thank you.
All right, so please open online voting.
Thank you all.
Okay, online voting is open.
Thank you, Tom.
Mayor.
June 14th, 2022 regular meeting. Category,
What did I do?
unfinished business.
I don't have a clue.
Subject,
Okay, it's not a
ordinance
vote.
third and final reading.
I hope
and
my
waive the
computer
reading
never
of the
starts
ordinance
talking
for
to
the
me in the
first
middle of the
reading.
night. Scare you to death.
Okay, so.
I'll just mute it
Durst-
for you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Durst still attached?
He's still here.
Okay. Councilmember Durst, are you voting?
Aaron, wake up.
Hello.
Maybe he's not there.
He's still present in the Zoom, but.
Sorry, I'm clicking it. It wasn't working. I don't know. Did it go?
Yes, it did, thank you. Okay, so online voting has closed. The amended motion passes with 6 yeas.
Okie dokie.
Thank you all.
Next thing on our agenda is an ordinance, third and final reading. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 10, Vehicle and Traffic, Chapters 10.02, 10.72, and 10.82, Bicycles and Scooters.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the third and final reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapters 10.02, 10.72, 10.82, gee, that's right in my way. Bicycles and scooters. Is that what it says?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion? Everybody vote.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Okay. Break or keep going?
I'm okay.
Okay. Anytime somebody wants a break, let me know. All right, thank you all. Now, the next thing is new business, and it's to approve the payroll by Councilman Smith.
I move to approve the May 8th, 2022 through May 21st, 2022 payroll register for $261,129.46.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the May 8th, 2022 through May 21st, 2022 payroll register for $261,129.46. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you very much. Next thing on our agenda is approval of accounts payable. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the accounts payable register for the period of May 14th, 2022 to May 25th, 2022 in the amount of $375,503.33.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the accounts payable register for the period of May 14th, 2022 to May 25th, 2022 in the amount of $375,503.33. Any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is approval of the financial audit of Councilman Smith.
I move that we accept and place on file the fiscal year 2020 financial audit report.
I'll gladly accept. Second.
We all
There's
do.
been a motion made and seconded to accept and to place on file the year 2020 financial audit report. Any discussion? Anybody want to say hallelujah? We got one. All right. Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed and motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is to approve a landfill waiver of Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to extend the expiration date of the St. Thomas Episcopal Church Choir Loft Thrift Store landfill waiver from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, with the amount not to exceed the $1,500.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded to extend the expiration date of St. Thomas Episcopal Church Choir Loft Thrift Store landfill waiver from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, with the amount not to exceed $1,500. Is there any discussion? I think it's pretty straightforward. Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is to talk about the Rawlins Fire Department ambulance, change order number 1. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the Rawlins Fire Department ambulance change order number 1 to allow substitution of a 2022 Ram 3500 chassis for the previously approved 2023 Ford F350 XLT chassis at a savings of $2,637.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the Rawlins Fire Department ambulance change order number 1 to allow substitution of a 2022 Ram 3500 chassis for the previously approved 2023 Ford F350 XLT chassis at a savings of $2,637. Is there any discussion? Sean?
Just one item, just want to point this out. This will exhaust the funds that we have in Gateway West and ECOLA and get that off of our books. Just kidding.
Any further discussion? Please open online voting. Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Chris?
was just wanting to say, it's nice to see that we're going with the Dodge instead of a Ford. There's a Dodge dealership right here for warranty, and I've been advocating for that kind of information. So, and to have through purchases. So appreciate that.
Did you open online voting?
Online voting's open.
Okay. Maybe I logged out again or something.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is approval of a contract. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve and renew precision demolition contract for hauling municipal solid waste, manure and tires, with the contract increasing from $32 a ton to $35 a ton to Casper, Wyoming.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve and renew precision demolition contract for hauling municipal solid waste, manure and tires, with contract increasing from $32 a ton to $35 a ton to Casper. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you. Next thing is to appoint somebody to the Special Purpose Tax Joint Power Board. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the appointment of the City of Rawlins Representative Finance Director Thomas Sarvey and the alternate representative Beverly Hannum, Assistant Finance Director to the Carbon County Specific Purpose Joint Powers Board for a 2-year term beginning July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the appointment of the City of Rawlins Representative, Finance Director Tom Sarvey, and alternate representative Beverly Hannum, Assistant Finance Director to the Carbon County Specific Purpose Joint Powers Board for a 2-year term beginning July 1st, 2022 through July 30th, 2024. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you very much. All right, next thing on our agenda is Airport Improvement Program Agreement. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to authorize Mayor Terry L. Wycombe to execute the Airport Improvement Program Agreement for transfer of entitlements of $68,000 of fiscal year 2021 of federal funds from the Rawlins Municipal Airport Harvey Field to Dixon Airport, Baggs, Wyoming.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to authorize Mayor Terry L. Wycombe, myself, to execute the Airport Improvement Program Agreement for transfer of entitlements of $68,000 of year 2021 of federal funds from Rawlins Municipal Airport Harvey Field to Dixon Airport, Baggs, Wyoming. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Mayor, I have a question for Aaron. Aaron, if you can hear me. This must be remaining funds from a project that this airport did not use, and therefore it can be transferred to the Dixon Airport. Is that correct?
Well, now, so the way that this works is we all get a yearly entitlement. We get $150,000. This year, which for the year of ending 22, we do not have any projects going that we need that money for. So by transferring it to Dixon, then the federal government realizes that everybody needs the money and they keep giving the money to each people each year. And so what will happen is next year, all of that money that is for the entitlements for the Dixon Airport, because their projects will be done this year, next year their funds will come back to us and that money will be returned to us. And then we will probably borrow money from other airports, their entitlements, and we'll use that to put in a new building in our next year, which will be in October.
Okay.
Our fiscal year will begin in October, and then our new entitlements, plus all of those entitlements that we borrowed out to other people, will then be returned to us.
Okay, and that's for the Aeronautical Board. Pass-through grants from the Aeronautics Board.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, through the FAA fund.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
So basically, it's just a temporary loan.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Councilman Martinez?
Just a question, it's probably the wrong one, but what guarantees that, do we have that Dixon would transfer these funds? What if they don't? What happens?
Because the money comes direct from the FAA, so the money doesn't actually come to us and then we physically transfer it to them. It just goes directly to them, and then the refund will come directly to us from the FAA with our normal entitlements.
Okay, thank you.
Any
So
further?
mom and dad control the purse strings, and they don't give it to the kids to do yet.
Any further discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on.
Mayor, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Just as a quick heads up, there's actually another funding that's in the works, and so just as warning to everybody, when you see this here probably in a meeting, maybe 2 meetings, we'll have the same thing. It'll be exactly the same situation.
All right.
Just to a different airport as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is transfer of liquor license. I would entertain a motion there. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the transfer of Mr. Jack's LLC doing business as Three Fiddlers Retail Liquor License Number 95 to 307 Horse Racing Inc. doing business as Derby Club Rawlins Retail Liquor License Number 95.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the transfer of Mr. Jack's LLC DBA Three Fiddlers Retail Liquor License Number 95 to 307 Horse Racing Incorporated doing business as Derby Club Rawlins Retail License Number 95. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is to talk about relocating funds from the Greenfield renovation to a riding aerator. Do I hear a motion? Councilman Smith?
I move to approve the reallocation of $20,000 from the general fields renovations to purchase a riding aerator with cedar box attachment.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the reallocation of $20,000 from the general funds from the general fields renovations to purchase a riding aerator with cedar box attachment. Is there any discussion? Jason, would you quickly tell us what that does? I know because I saw you, but people on TV might not.
And I don't.
Honorable Mayor and Council. So this is a great piece of equipment that would benefit not just our parks, but the cemetery especially, and the golf course as well. It's a standing aerator with a seed box attachment, so you can aerate and put seed down at the same time, and it's super fast. If you look at the they have videos of showing, I can't remember how many acres you can do in an hour, but it's a lot. But especially in the times we are in now with water restrictions and watering once per week at all of our parks and cemetery, this is a great quick way for us to get that aeration completed at our turf grass areas so that the little water that we do put down on the ground gets to the source that it needs to get to. Especially the cemetery, because right now, because of the amount of time it takes to manually water the cemetery, it's getting a little bit less than once a week water. So this will allow us to aerate, and it's also, I should say, we have an aerator on the back of our tractor that we do use for all of our parks, but it's cumbersome, it's large, it doesn't really turn well, and so we can't hit all turf areas in the cemetery. This will allow us to make turns and go and do a lot more for the cemetery. And again, when we're looking at the amount of water we're putting down, this will be a quick way, low maintenance, little amount of time to get that aeration done in the spring and in the fall, so that that water that we do put down gets to the root system of that turf grass.
Well, you pull out the plugs and then you can either fertilize or seed or what? Both?
So you don't, yes, so it has a box seeder attachment in the back, so you pull out the plugs and then it puts the seeds down right after, so you aerate, and behind the aerator it drops the seed. It's like we talked about at the work session earlier today, we probably won't have this equipment in time for some of those projects to happen, but we mentioned next spring, if we go to do that again on all those areas, this will be a great piece of equipment to accomplish that.
Councilman Smith?
As I read this, Jason, the money is already in your fund is just coming from the general fields line item, and you're just reallocating it to an equipment line item, correct?
Correct.
Thank
And
you.
it is a savings at the end of the day of $5,000. And this equipment will also be beneficial to the general's field as well. So it's not, we're not ignoring that. That field does need some renovations and being able to aerate spring and summer, because we're going to have to top dress and we're going to have to bring in some good soil over the years to bring that soil to a good, healthy condition, because that field was basically built on the desert. There was really no, anyways.
No organics in the soil
Exactly.
whatsoever.
So when we water quite a bit, it's nice and green. But when we're watering the amount of water we're doing right now, it actually looks pretty good right now, but that's going to start to fade pretty quickly.
All right. Any further questions? Any further discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a resolution to approve to update the Shooting Range Advisory Board bylaws. Do I hear a motion? Linda?
Could I ask a question first?
Sure.
Legal counsel, my husband works at the shooting range. Do I have a conflict of interest?
No, ma'am.
Because this is board and,
This
okay.
is the advisory
Thank you.
board, yes.
Then, Mayor, I will move to approve the resolution to update Shooting Range Advisory Board bylaws.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve resolution to update Shooting Range Advisory Board bylaws. Any discussion about that?
Only if you have questions.
They're probably way outdated, I imagine. I didn't read this whole thing, but I bet they are.
Yeah, quick, it's teleconferencing, agendas provided to members 5 days prior to a meeting, and organized annually. Those are the 3 basic revisions.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is an executive session. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to go into executive session at 9:26 p.m. per Wyoming Statute 16-405 to consider or receive any information classified as confidential by law, and to consider the appointment, employment, right to practice, or dismissal of a public officer, professional person, or employee, or to hear complaints or charges brought against an employee, professional person, or officer, unless the employee, professional person, or officer requests a public hearing. The governing body may exclude from any public or private hearing during the examination of a witness any or all witnesses in the matter being investigated. Following the hearing or executive session, the governing body may deliberate on its decision in the executive session on matters concerning litigation to which the governing body is party, or proposed litigation to which the governing body may be a party.
There's been a motion made and seconded to go into executive session. Please open online voting, please.
Online voting is open.
I'm not going to repeat that one.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas.
All right.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We gotta go downstairs.
Yes, please take
Okay.